Good evening, everyone. This is the Tuesday, February 20th, 2024 meeting of the Board of Library Trustees, regular meeting, and it is now 6:30 p.m. And we will call the meeting to order and have a roll call for Secretary DiLorenzo, please.
Yes. Trustee Cox? Here. Trustee DiLorenzo here. Trustee Nealon?
Here.
Trustee O'Keefe?
Here.
Trustee Senate?
Here.
Trustee Summer?
Here.
Trustee Fishman?
Here. Thank you. We'll now move on to review of the draft minutes. Are there from our regular meeting, January 16th, 2024. Are there any corrections or additions to those minutes? All right, seeing none, may I have a motion to approve, please?
I move approval of the January 16, 2024 regular board meeting minutes as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you. The minutes have been moved by Trustee Senate and seconded by Trustee Summer and Trustee DiLorenzo. May we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Trustee Cox?
Yes.
Trustee DiLorenzo, yes. Trustee Nealon?
Yes.
Trustee O'Keefe?
Yes.
Trustee Senate?
Yes.
Trustee Summer?
Yes.
Trustee Fishman?
Yes. Thank you. The January 16th, 2024 regular board meeting are approved. Thank you. Any comments, public comments from those in our gallery? All right, seeing none, thank you. We'll go on to any presentations this evening. None. We will now move on to our treasurer's report. Trustee Summer, please.
Good
Thank you.
evening. You bet. Just a couple of comments. Can you hear me okay? In regards to our investments, all three of our general fund CDs that matured this month were reinvested. Two were for 24 months, one was for 30 months, to expand our ladder and capitalize on available rates, which were from 4 to 4.5%. We have one more maturing at the end of this month in the general fund, two in early March in the special reserve, and Director Austin is planning on reinvesting all three, as well as any forthcoming CDs through July. We'll have to discuss strategy for the special reserve funds maturing later, accounting for about $2 million. We'll work with Andrew Kim based on our plans for any renovation. The negative balance in the operating checking account includes checks written and not yet cleared the bank. Director Austin checks these balances every day with the bank logs in and then transfers funds as needed. So that's basically deposits or checks in transit. The check for Kruger International for $5,871 was for a new networked table that houses patron PCs. It replaces an old study carrel from the 1950s and was a planned expense. The check to Interactive Building Solutions in the amount of $31,184 was for the BAS system. And lastly, the check to Cooperative Computer Services for $22,029 is for the library catalog. It's a membership fee that we pay quarterly, and I tend to always ask about it quarterly. Did anyone have any questions on anything else? All right.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on the bills and salaries, check details? Anything else? Seeing none, may we have a motion to approve, please?
I move approval of the bills and salaries check detail for January 2024 as presented.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Thank you. We have a motion to approve the bills and salaries check detail for January 2024, moved by Trustee Cox and seconded by Trustee Summer. Thank you. Trustee DiLorenzo, may we have a
Yes.
roll call,
Trustee
please?
Cox?
Yes.
Trustee DiLorenzo, yes. Trustee Nealon?
Yes.
Trustee O'Keefe?
Yes.
Trustee Senate?
Yes.
Trustee Summer?
Yes.
Trustee Fishman?
Yes. Thank you. Motion passed. We'll now move on to our discussion items. And I'll turn this over to Director Austin, please.
Okay, thank you. You're going to get to hear a bit of me tonight, as there are a lot of informational resources that I'm going to be providing and reporting on. So the first item is largely contextual, but also procedural, and I wanted to kind of introduce this to you. So there's an overview to my survey of the Illinois Standards for Public Libraries review, which is a task that I undertake each year, mostly in concert with the application for the per capita grant. So to give a little context for this, it was a little bit different this year in applying for the grant. So for decades, serving our public, the Standards for Illinois Public Libraries has been one of the guiding resources for benchmarking the roles and progress of our nationally recognized quality of public library services in the state of Illinois. Since 2019, we have been operating under a new version of this, which is known as Serving Our Public 4.0, which was developed by the Illinois Library Association's professional members and associated experts who completely revised and updated those standards, recognizing that the library industry had grown an awful lot since the prior edition had been published. So that document was introduced to us in 2020, and we had a procedural task that we undertook while we were doing all of our meetings virtually during COVID, where we would take each of these chapters one by one, and we would do an internal study in evaluating how well we met those core standards. Each year, I go through that process again. We also looked at this back in 2020, more of as an omnibus. We kind of conducted that study. And this year, for 2024, in applying for our per capita grant, I went through and did it again myself, and I've compiled that report for you. So that's what is behind this cover sheet, which is a chapter-by-chapter review of the checklists for each of the categories, which loosely affiliate with the departments of Wilmette Public Library. So each of those chapters loosely affiliates with the roles of each of our departments. There is a bit of a format that I've used, as I used in the past with this. If I've highlighted something, it means that we've partially met that goal and that there's room for improvement. If it's gray, it means that it's a standard that we have not yet met. We substantially meet all of the expectations for the standards, which should likely not come as a surprise to you having done this previously, but also based upon our metrics and performance over the years, we do typically tend to exceed the standards. I wanted to give you an opportunity to comment or ask questions about any of these things. If you'd like me to pull out some of the information, I'm happy to do so. I felt that this year, for a couple reasons, it was pertinent for us to have this conversation at this meeting. One, the per capita grant application this year requires that we have compliance with a number of standards, including the Serving Our Public standards, but also at this meeting last year in February of 23, we approved an entirely new collection management policy, which did set forth a statutory requirement that was voted on by Governor Pritzker in June of last year, which effectively banned book banning in the state of Illinois and would exempt any library who did not adopt the ALA Bill of Rights or have built-in policy, not unlike what we adopted a year ago, from being able to receive the per capita grant. So I was very happy to say that when we applied for our per capita grant this year, that we had a board-approved policy that satisfied that state law. In that application, there's also a blow-by-blow review of each of these chapters and whether or not we were satisfying those basic standards. And in my response, and based upon this report, I feel that we do substantially comply with all of these standards. I submitted that application in January, and I got a fast response that we can expect to receive our grant this year, so I'm very happy to report that. I thought that this would be also a great time and context for us, the fact that the next item on our agenda is to have the second official meeting of our local government efficiency committee, that this would be a good baseline for us to base our internal view of the library, to recognize and understand that we are in compliance with these standards. So based upon all of that, do you all have any questions or comments about this summary report? Okay. Then we can consider this a part of the documents that we will be reviewing as part of this Government Efficiency Committee. Okay.
Thank you. Very detailed. I was just going to point out, too, that anything that you've highlighted, I liked how you gave the explanation under that, so we know that what's to come. So that,
Actually,
that works
Yeah,
well.
please,
do
Renee.
you just turn in this checklist, or do you have to turn in evidence along with the, I'm just wondering how cumbersome this is for you to do.
I think the cumbersome part was mostly just the self-study and creating this document to reflect that we've gone through this task to evaluate our services. For the grant application itself, I do not need to substantiate it beyond saying that I've conducted this process.
So you just have to say you did it.
Correct.
They don't ask you to submit policies, procedures to back up.
Now, this year, I did have to provide a copy of the policy.
Okay.
So the new collection policy was an attachment, and
And
that was
other-
the key piece they were looking for.
I'm sorry, other than saying you have to do this, there's no other place where this is required?
This is just a requirement of the per capita
For
grant.
that?
Yep.
Okay.
Which again, for everyone's reference, is worth about $40,000 to Wilmette Library. And that goes into our general fund for the purchase of materials. And I can currently do the application as the administrator of the Kenilworth Public Library District. And I do a similar evaluation because we're contracting libraries. Winnetka Northfield Public Library conducts a similar review for themselves and their district. And then Monica and I compare our notes and share that information out with the Kenilworth board so that they're aware that their libraries are in compliance. And Kenilworth also received their per capita grant.
Do we get any portion of Kenilworth's grant?
As part of the administrative fees, yes. That's all part of the servicing agreement. And we apply those funds to collections here in service of our Kenilworth community.
Is Kenilworth as substantial as ours?
So, if you factor, we serve approximately 28,000 and we're getting approximately 40,000, it's, Kenilworth is, we get about maybe, 3,800 or so.
Oh, okay.
So, per capita.
Are the funds fully discretionary as far as use?
They give specification for how we can use those funds, and we have to report. There's a checklist that we report on. For us, it's easier if we apply those funds specifically to collections. But some agencies may elect to provide them for other purposes based on need. Historically, we've just always applied them to collections.
Terrific, great, thank you. Thank you.
All right, so that's your standards review.
All right. Shall we move on?
Go ahead.
Okay, sounds great. And our next discussion item is our Local Government Efficiency Committee meeting. And that is, we're happy to welcome Linda Dykeman, who will be on our committee. And Linda, if you'd like to join us at one of either table, that would be wonderful. And we also have Eric Biederman, and I think we invited him to come anytime between 6:30 and 7, and
He'll likely be along any moment
we're
now.
ahead of ourselves a little
Yeah.
bit. Okay, thank you. Well,
All
Linda,
right.
thank you for joining us and being here this evening and agreeing to be on our committee, and we appreciate all your work and service. Thank you very much.
All right, so just as a reminder, why are we holding this committee meeting? What is the purpose of this? So this is in compliance with 50 ILCS 70-1, the Local Government Efficiency, the Decennial Committee on Local Government Efficiency Act. And per this law, which was signed in June of 22 by Governor Pritzker, all Illinois local governments that impose a tax as defined in the act and exempting municipalities and counties, we must convene a committee to study and report on local government efficiency. And under this law, local governments must do 4 things: form a committee to study local efficiencies and to meet for the very first time no later than June 10 of 23, and we did that. We met last May. And we need to meet at least 3 times. This is the second official meeting of this committee. We must prepare a written report with recommendations, if any, on the efficiencies and increased accountability of our unit of local government. And then we need to file our report with the county once we've completed our review. And this is a law that will be in place every 10 years. So that's what the decennial part is every 10 years we're going to conduct this study, and we'll file a report every 10 years as such. So procedurally, The work of the committee is that we need to summarize our work and findings within a written report, which must include recommendations in respect to increased accountability and efficiency, and must provide the report to the county board in which the governmental unit is located no later than 18 months after the formation of the committee. So for our purposes, by the end of this calendar year, 24, we'll need to file our report. And we will not delay any longer than we need to in this process. The purpose of this particular meeting is sort of a reorganization of our group, and I will soon be assigning some homework to our committee so that we can effectively study the documents and resources that will help us to compile this project. So what I wanted to share with you, and as we did in our first meeting, there was a draft report document that the attorneys that represent the Reaching Across Illinois Library System of RAILS, which we are a member of, they provided us with this template document and the type of reporting that we should be providing. And I've begun to draft that report. I've started to fill in some of the necessary data, and I'm getting to a point right now where we're going to need to engage in a bit of reading, a bit of homework, a bit of self-study. And so I wanted to provide you a little bit of information there and to officially start to assign some of this work. So the tasks that we have ahead of us will be to evaluate any of the intergovernmental agreements that Wilmette Public Library has, any community partnerships that we're engaged in. So we've recently rebooted our Outreach and Community Engagement Committee, where we're doing an internal study ourselves as staff for all the relationships that we have with other partners. So I'll be sharing that information with the group once that group has that information compiled. I'll also put together all the intergovernmental agreements for you, whether it be with Kenilworth Public Library District, the Village of Wilmette, Wilmette Park District, School District 39, et cetera. I will share those agreements with you. I will also ask you to review the state laws that are applicable to libraries. I'll provide you with links to the following information. The Illinois Open Meetings Act. I will share our policy on public comment, which is posted in the back of this room and at every one of our public meetings. Information about our designation of OMA officers. I will attest that the board members have completed their OMA training. We will provide our schedule of regular meetings of the library board. I'll have you review the Illinois Freedom of Information Act. I'm the designated FOIA officer, and I've completed my officer training, and I will share that information with you as well. I'll share with you the information on how we compute and retain all of our FOIA requests and where that information is posted on our website for anyone who is curious about submitting a FOIA request. There's a lot of information about FOIA in this report. There's documentation that we provide from IMRF, which is our pension plan, regarding the total compensation package. We have a requirement to post that information for those employees who have a total compensation of over $75,000. There's a law that dictates that. There's a law that dictates the auditing official for whistleblowers in our organization. All of our statement of economic interest filings, which is something that all of us do as elected officials and also executive members of the library. That is a task that you'll soon have to be completing. I submitted that list of filers to the county recently, and you'll be receiving email here very shortly to complete those tasks before May 1st. I will provide you information about how the library has complied by having every member of our team participate in sexual harassment prevention training. As I mentioned before, our intergovernmental agreements, all of our budget and financial documentation, which is also posted on our website, as well as our compliance with state ethics laws, and all of our budget and financial, oh, there's repetition of that. We want to make doubly sure that everyone knows that we're doing our budget and financial documentation. And there's also some additional information that was provided by our attorney on this regarding what it means to be an efficient unit of local government, which isn't so much, like how we save paper, but more, but sort of, I think, in effect. But I think there's more clear articulation in this article that they provided to us from 2016. So what I'm going to be doing for you all is I'm going to be compiling all this information, likely hosting it digitally so that you can access it all in one place, and I'm not sending you a million files, just to keep this clean and easy to review. And then as we go through this process, I will ask you to kind of report back on any questions or comments that you have if you need clarification. And for our next meeting, we'll come back and we'll discuss any feedback that we've collected in this process, things that we've learned, any requests for additional information. And by then, I will have drafted a little bit more on this report that I can start sharing with you, and I will include that draft of the report in the board packet for the committee to review. So that will include some additional information. What have we done well? Have we identified any inefficiencies? What are they, and how do we think we might resolve them? And is there anything that we can do better on? And then if there are any additional studies regarding government efficiency that we would like to comment on or try to emulate, we'll have those to refer to as well. I don't know if the next meeting of this group will likely be the final meeting. We do need to have at least 3 meetings. But given the fact that the project isn't necessarily due until later this year, I don't want to rush the process. I want to give you all ample time to feel like you've confidently fulfilled the purpose of this statute. So at this time, are there any questions from the committee about the work that is before us?
It's mostly you doing the work.
Well,
Right?
and I'm going to have you
Yeah.
review
Yeah,
all
wait,
of
we-
all of those documents.
Is
Yes.
there any way we can help you? I mean, it seems like I don't really see how you seem to have all the information.
So I think the way that the committee can help with this process is to, when you receive this email referencing all of these documents, is to take it seriously, to look at the information, and to give it its due review, and to seriously, talk with me if there's any questions that you have about it, if you want more clarification. I'm here to help address any of the questions that you may have. And then we will, I'll be asking for your input as we start drafting it to make sure that it clearly reflects what your collective opinions are about the status of our efficiency.
But I'm just looking at the formatting, briefly, it looks like there's brevity in their request. Is
Yeah,
that
we
correct?
we can be efficient in
Yeah.
how we write the document.
Oh, yes,
It just
yes.
needs to be complete.
Right,
Yes.
right. So there's no process that we must only fulfill the lines that they've given, or we can have some flexibility with that.
I think so. I mean, I feel like we can, again, as Wilmette Library does, I feel that we can exceed the expectations of our governing body that's going to be reviewing this information. But I'm not going to take an unnecessary amount of time to complete this material, but at the same time, I want to be thorough. This is the first time that we're going to be completing this process, and I want to help whoever's doing this 10 years from now to feel that they're also, that they've got a template that they can build off of. And I want to acknowledge that our other community member is here. Hi, Eric.
Hi, you started earlier than
We did. We're having an
did.
efficient meeting this evening. If you would like, you can come to the table. But I think we've actually kind of maybe.
Almost, welcome. It is true. We did make note that we said we would probably start this at about 7. So you are totally in right on time. But we've moved through our agendas. Yes, efficiency is the name of the game here. So thank you for joining us this evening.
So I just want to make sure, so you're going to send us up some materials and we should use this outline to kind of use as not a rubric, but what we should base our review on. And then at some point we'll come back and share our feedback.
Correct.
Okay.
So I will spell it all out for you all, what the next steps in the process are. The materials that I provided at our first meeting, I will provide that to you all again as a refresher. And I will provide with you, for you, this draft report that I'm working off of right now, which includes the checklist of the materials that I've just read through that we're going to be providing, which include all the statutes that the library is referring to, the Open Meetings Act, Freedom of Information Act, all of the internal materials regarding our budget and finances and policies, the training that we've completed, and so on. So this checklist is essentially all the materials that I'm going to be forwarding to you all. And then I will just ask that you each individually go through this process, give it your due review, and provide any questions or feedback that you have for me about this process. I'm happy to meet with you individually. For our elected officials, in compliance with the Open Meetings Act, we can meet in pairs if we would like, but if we need to have another organizational meeting where we can have more of an open conversation about this, as a matter of course, we can certainly do that as well. But for our community members, maybe the three of us can get together and talk about what we've seen through this process. Email is a fair way for us to do some of the basics procedurally to get there. We don't need to take a lot of time in our governing meeting to have these discussions. But I want to make sure that we're transparent about the work that we're doing as well. The report is ultimately going to do that, but I do think that showing our work through this process and having those conversations is also part of the work. So we have homework. We'll have some reading to do. But as I said at the top of all this, we have 18 months to complete this process, and we still have essentially 10 months left this year to complete this work. I would love to have it done before the fall. So if this is something that we could wrap up yet this summer, I think that would be a great step to take.
Great. I think that's very doable. Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions?
Good. Great.
Okay.
Well done.
So
Thank you.
Stay tuned for an email with your official assignment.
And to that point, the assignment to read over everything, or will you sort of divvy up? Or did I hear you say that? Or will you assign a certain section to each of us, or just say, here's everything?
Well, as the chair of our committee, maybe you and I can talk about how we want to assign out the work, because that is a long checklist, and the statutes themselves are pretty involved. So we may want to talk about how we could divide that up. And if you have specific parts that you want to focus on as individuals, that might be one way that we could tackle this. Otherwise, I don't see any harm in reading it all if you want to.
Agreed. Right. Nothing, it would be excellent. But if time constraints or someone has, like you say, a particular interest or knowledge, then maybe, once we see what you have, maybe those of us could come forward and say, oh, I'd like to focus on this, and really fine-tooth comb one particular section, not saying you had to go through the whole thing. But we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Great. All right. Thank you. Well, thank you to our community members for joining us this evening, and we're going to continue on with our agenda for this evening, but we thank you for coming. Any questions that you have, or?
I probably will have some as we get a little further into it, so, but not right.
Not at this moment. Good.
Did they get copies of this?
Yes. Yeah. And I'll provide it again for you all. Yes. Great. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, we'll move along to our director's report. So yes, we do have a good dose of Director Austin this evening. Thank you.
Okay.
You need to take a moment, and
We're good.
We're good. Okay.
All right. I guess as we're talking about meetings and as we're talking about how we're going to be organizing ourselves here around what we just talked about with the Local Government Efficiency Committee meeting, there are two other committees that we're going to be convening as the board here shortly. And I'm going to want to get in touch with all of you as we all have different roles on these committees. So we're going to be rebooting the Policy Committee meeting as we've talked about previously. I'm happy to report that we've officially finished compiling all of our human resources policy draft. We have a 75-page document that we're reviewing internally currently, and that is going to be going to our human resources attorney for review. Following that review, we will make that presentation to Policy Committee. I've also been in discussion with the Village Sustainability Coordinator, Lucy Mellon, who has made a recommendation for the library to adopt a sustainability policy. We've been talking about this. It's part of our strategic plan goals. So I have a draft version of that policy that we will also be bringing forward to the Policy Committee. You may have noticed that one of the areas that we are also in need of development regarding the Illinois standards previously in our meeting is that we don't have a security camera policy officially adopted by the board. And I have language from our attorney about that, and we'll add that to our agenda for the policy committee meeting as well. So I expect that the policy committee will likely be meeting once or twice to discuss this policy. And we'll officially make a motion to approve those policies at a future regular board meeting later this spring, likely probably April or May for that, just given how much time it takes for this process. So policy committee, I'll be sending out a doodle poll with a couple dates for us to be looking for setting up 2 separate meetings to discuss that content. We will also be entering our spring budget season, which means the Finance Committee will need to get together. We typically approve the budget at the June meeting, and we generally have held 2 committee meetings before we do that approval in June. One of those meetings typically happens in early May. Then we do a review of what we've discussed at the May regular meeting. And then we typically hold another committee meeting late May, early June to get a little bit more in depth about the personnel side of the budget, and then make a recommendation for approval at the June meeting. So I think it'd be good for us to get those dates on our calendar as well, and I'll be sending out a doodle poll for you all on those here shortly as well.
Thank you.
Meetings. All right, so we'll get that underway. So on to my report. Any questions about that stuff first before I move forward? All right. My report. So in your packet, you will see that statistically, we had a really strong January. Our statistics for physical circulation continue their pace, keeping up with our fiscal year 22-23 numbers. And digital circulation continues with an exponential growth trend. You'll see that we were 7% over our record high circulation statistics for our digital collections in December. I will add that our digital collections have grown 40% in circulation since 2020. Wilmette Library was an early member of the My Media Mall Consortium, which is now known as the Digital Library of Illinois Consortium, and our community overwhelmingly adopted digital media at that time. And it has only continued to grow. We have really been impressed, particularly in this last fiscal year. There's a visual chart that Digital and Maker Services Manager Lauren Kelly provided in the packet, which color codes each of the last 4 years. The green line is our current fiscal year, and those numbers are insane. We don't really understand how it has taken off so much in this current fiscal year, more so than earlier in the pandemic years, but it's going like gangbusters, so we're really excited about that. We're also really impressed with our door counts. They continue to be remarkable and are increasing overall. We're continuing to serve about 700 users a day. Today was unusually busy. There was a lot of traffic this afternoon, so people are coming back in the library. It's great. We're still a little bit off our mark from our 2019 traffic, but we also recognize that in 5 years, a lot of trends have changed in the way that people consume their media. We've created a lot of efficiencies and different ways for people to access their content. Digital users obviously are up. They may not be physically coming in the library. They may be using the lockers. So foot traffic doesn't necessarily reflect the outcomes of the library. It's just one of those metrics that we're studying. We welcomed 204 new patrons in January and continued our partnership with D39 to create library cards for new students in our school district. Speaking of data, all of our service desks are now tracking their public service contact data through our new management system, Gimlet, which allows us the opportunity to better anticipate service patterns and trends as we evaluate the range of details that we're studying on the floor. And as we're moving into this year's space needs study, I think it's going to give us a lot more metrics that we can compare our data against. The big news for January is that we completed 3 of our major strategic plan initiatives for this fiscal year. And that all kind of landed within this month. It's been a very busy month. The big, exciting, really glamorous news is that we launched the studio officially on January 24th. How many of you have had a chance to peek into the studio or have a tour? Awesome. It's really exciting. This is our first dedicated creative space, highlighting the programs, services, and equipment that our digital and maker services teams have been developing for nearly a year and officially opened this month. The implementation was a true collaboration between many departments, including the facilities, communication and events, IT, adult services, and youth services departments. This is all part of our digital and maker services team. All of this began by enhancing our computer services and developing a new space for the public computers, including further enhancement of the West Side computers, where we had relocated some PCs during the pandemic years. So the technology center where the studio is currently located, you may recall, used to be a home to over a dozen computers for a number of years. During the pandemic years, we had to spread things out to help people maintain a safe distance from one another, and we received a lot of positive feedback in that process that people liked being back on the West Side. As we were getting underway with our space needs study recently, we came across some old maps of the library and how the library was arranged. Well, not that old, just some 20-some years ago. And it is interesting to see that 20-some years ago, that's where the computers were, right where we moved them on the West Side. We've had a lot of positive feedback from the folks who go over there who typically require less direct service from the staff. And we also added, as Treasurer Summer mentioned a moment ago, a replacement table enhancing computer services over by our new reference and technology desk. We've got dedicated computer tables over there now that have privacy dividers on them, as well as charging that's built right into the table.
Nice.
So we started this whole process of launching the studio by creating a better home for our computers. And in doing so, we were able to open up this space, which allowed us to implement a space that's dedicated to a lot of the programming that we've been offering in a more diffuse manner in various spaces around the library for the last few years. Now it's all in one dedicated location. We have a range of services and equipment in there. We've got a whole web page dedicated to this. I recommend anyone who's interested to go there, or even better, just go get a tour of the space. It's really exciting. So we did our soft launch on January 24th, and we're going to officially do our grand opening showcase of the studio with the return of Maker Fest, which is on Saturday, March 9th, from 10:30 to 2:30, and we're going to have 15 exhibitors and vendors from around the area who are going to be showcasing their craftiness. So we've got a number of
Their
partners.
makerness.
Their maker, yes. So we've got Sew on Central, Chicago Woodworking, Nutri High School is bringing their electronic music team. We've got an upcycling crew from Central School coming over. There's a lot of great partners, and you can learn more about it also on the same page as the studio. So I hope that you all come by. It's going to be a very busy day at the library.
And the whole library, excuse me, will, for interrupting, but will be utilized. I recall this room was full of tables.
Yep, so the
The past.
auditorium, I mean, obviously the showcase is going to be the studio.
Right.
But we are going to be throughout the library, the auditorium, the small meeting room, spaces on the second floor dedicated more towards youth services, the youth programming room. The teen room is also going to be in use. But there will still be other quiet spaces for those who are not all about what Makerspace is about, or Makerfest rather is about. The periodicals room will remain a more sacred, quiet space for those who need a place to study that day. But it will be a hive of activity on that Saturday, we do anticipate. We're going to try to park off-site as far away as we can to try to open up parking around the area, because we've got a lot of staff and vendors that are going to be participating. So we want to make it to be convenient for everyone who attends. So planning is underway for that, again, March 9th.
Great. Could we possibly use the church?
We've partnered with the church.
We have? Oh, good, good. Okay, I know that there's some staff parking, but for that day.
The staff will be parking there. So
Okay.
the village lot and the library lot will be more open than usual.
Great. Good.
A couple other strategic plan goals that were accomplished in January. We officially completed our building automation system project, so I'm happy to have that crossed off the list. We've provided information in the packet about that project. A little less glamorous, but definitely something we're very excited about to have that complete. Today was a big day for Wilmette Library because we officially migrated our telephone system to our new vendor. and its attendant hardware and software, creating a range of improvements for staff and patrons alike. Did anyone call the library today? If you call the library, you will notice that we have a brand new auto attendant that will greet you. We still have the same staff at the welcome desk and switchboard to direct your call if you just want to press 0 when you dial in. But we have a very friendly set of greetings with an auto attendant that can better help you navigate the library and try to get to the person you're trying to call. All of our service desks are there immediately if you want to just dial right into them. There's a dial by name directory and a host of other services that are available. It's fully automated, it lives in the cloud, there are a host of features that we're tapping into, and the audio quality is crystal clear. It's really a huge improvement. As you know, our past system was over 20 years old and was woefully out of date. We're really thrilled with this new system, and we're happy to have it completed today officially. There's still a number of things that we need to build upon and improve and customize, but the range of features that this avails us with is really going to help us to be more efficient as a team. We can take our library phones with us now on our cell phone through an app. It facilitates the way that we can network with each other via meetings. There's a lot of customizability that we're really excited about. So I appreciate you all greenlighting this project last fall. And we had a number of hurdles that we had to cross to get to where we are today, but mission accomplished. So we're really happy about that.
Yeah.
All right, so it has also been a busy month with other details. It's mostly been a lot of coordination and development, and we had a wave of winter illnesses and another round of COVID that tried to trip us up, but we got a lot accomplished this year anyway, or this month rather. I'll give you a couple more highlights here from my report. The 800s weeding project was completed, so just some detail from the collections. We backshifted that portion of the nonfiction section and created an open section of shelving. There's 4 sections of shelving on the west wall at the foot of the stairs on the west side and lower level. And so this winter, we have turned that into a display space. We have aspirations for how we're going to change that area. We've selected some improved uprights so that we can put some of our backstock shelving back into that area and make it more attractive. We haven't come up with our final solution for what we're going to be putting on that wall at this point, but right now various sections of the lower level collections are being highlighted, and we're going to develop that space a bit more in the future. So as you're making your way over to BDU, check out some of the highlighted titles that are over there. Also, with regards to the collection, Stack Map is our wayfinding and accessibility tool that's embedded in the library catalog, is going through a period of redevelopment. Patsy DeVono and Shelver Michael Ma are in the process of updating that tool. We've shifted a lot of collections in the last couple of years, and that tool needs to be updated and more regularly maintained. So our staff is going to help with that. As always, we're developing the Library of Things collection, and this month we added a 4K Blu-ray player. So if you want to check out 4K Blu-rays from the library and you don't have a player and you want to see if it's something that you want to invest in, check it out from the library first and see if that makes a big difference on your TV. As I mentioned earlier, we talked about the Overdrive e-collections and how usage is up 40% since 2020. A statistic that Lauren shared with me today is that Wilmette Library is number 6 in digital circulation in this consortium, and we are 26th in population served, which I think again is a reflection of just how engaged our community is. There are a lot of large libraries in the Digital Library of Illinois consortium. For us to be number 6 in circulation is pretty remarkable given the fact that we're serving a relatively small community. All right. I'm going to keep riffing here for a minute. You pull the plug on me when you've had enough. The first month of our Wilmette Reads program, which is our new seasonal initiative celebrating readers and our shared love of story, kicked off in January. As I mentioned previously, we've had 227 community members who have registered to take part and to collect their choice of a library tote or winter beanie. As seen at our last meeting, a number of our trustees had already picked up some of those and have been modeling them around the community.
Okay, yes, one more time with And energy and vigor. There we go.
So apparently that's working because folks are seeing it around the village and they're coming in and they're asking, hey, I saw that. I want to get one of those. What do I need to do? So we're continuing to see a lot of new registrants come in who have heard about it through word of mouth and just seeing it around the community. So that branding is really working. We're just right through February right now, and we're going to continue collecting our data and talk a bit more about our outcomes and programming. And I'll share that information with you more in March. But already we're seeing that our engagement far exceeds what we've been doing in the last couple of years with our winter reading program for adults and teens. So this seems like it's a really good model for us to be adapting from. And we thank the Friends of the Wilmette Public Library for their continued support of this initiative. Some other projects going on this month. We launched our memory kits, which are designed for people with memory loss and their caregivers to use together, and they're in active circulation now. These memory kits were curated by project leader Jill McEwen in Adult Services, and each of these kits offers materials united by a theme and is intended to activate the senses, stimulate memories, and spark conversation. They're currently all in use. And we're collecting feedback via some forms that are with those items so that we can figure out ways to make them as meaningful as possible for our patrons and their loved ones. 2 of our staff members attended the New Trier Township Youth Services meeting in January. Krista Hutley, our teen librarian, and Andrea Von Johnson, our youth services manager, attended. That meeting was intended to gather professionals serving youth, particularly teens in New Trier Township, to share information about ourselves and our organizations in order to facilitate partnerships across the community. Another example of our government efficiency. The meeting was attended by other area librarians, park districts, nonprofits, social service organizations, and school districts. In youth services in January, we offered 53 programs that were attended by over 1,800 patrons. We also kicked off our Youth Winter Reading Club, and posted a new story at the Hibbard Story Walk. In our children's room, we offered a Winter Reading Club scavenger hunt, a sign language activity, and a New Year's vision activity. Youth Services conducted 16 outreach visits this month, reaching 265 people. And our preschool outreach librarian, Ruth Bell, made 30 deliveries of books and materials to our partner preschools. Sarah Jo Zaharako and Etty Berland hosted the North Suburban Special Recreation Association for welcome visits in January, and 9 members and 5 staff members from NSSRA's Adult Day Trips program got behind-the-scenes tours of the mechanical room, the auditorium's hearing loop, our automated material handler, and a number of places around the library. They made buttons in the teen room. And they viewed our teen social story in preparation for their visit, and they found it helpful. Today, they were also here, and I'll provide more information about their visit from today, but they were filming their own video and creating their own social story today in an effort to try to help them and their members for future visits. So this has been a wonderful partnership, and really great to see it. You may have followed the saga of the adorable beasties from Youth Services. They made quite an appearance in my report this month, and were a big hit with our younger patrons. And there's a very popular video on social media that you can check as well. Final things, human resources. We had a really positive response to our posting for a part-time Youth Services associate, and we hope to be making a decision here pretty soon. And our full-time finance manager position closes this Friday, and we're looking forward to scheduling some interviews and bringing in the finance manager here really soon. Lastly, we kicked off the planning for our Staff Development Day with our Staff Development Day Committee yesterday, and that's just 2 months away. April 19th will be closed that Friday to turn inward and focus a bit more on ourselves as a team, and to officially kick off with the staff our Space Needs Assessment project and talk about the future of libraries with our architect. That concludes my prepared portion of the report. Is there anything that you'd like to pull out or discuss?
I would just like to comment, I was thrilled to see Krista went to that youth mental health first aid training. I think that was fabulous. And the one concern, which was interesting, of being aware of local and national resources and to have them on hand so that staff are not scrambling to find them, which the intergovernmental group, Trish and I, are working on. So hopefully we'll have some solutions to those. I also love the patron stories. I thought that was a cute little add-on. And I missed the statistics at the end. You know, usually there's those charts with the colors of the different, those were not in.
I will update my report and make sure that that documentation is
Do you
there
like
for
the
your
colors or
review.
you like the report?
I like the report, that
Both.
you can see what online services are being used, and I'm sure somebody always had.
I have them. I will post them right after this meeting.
That's
I'm
okay.
so sorry for
That's
that
okay.
miss.
It wasn't worth calling you or sending you an email. Just
I have two comments.
Do feel free in the future to let me know about that.
One's a question. Tell me more about this Gimlet thing.
That was
which
on
is
my-
like-
thank you. Good.
What are you recording? What is the staff doing? Are asking questions about what services are beneficial or just what people use?
So it's all of those things, essentially. So at all of our public service desks, we have interactions with the public on a day-to-day basis. By law, we have to collect statistics for filling out the Illinois Public Library Annual Report, IPLAR. So in there, we have to report the directional context that we have, which are the questions, you know, where's the bathroom? How do I find, where do I go to get this thing? Directional, things that don't require a lot of feedback. We spend a lot of time orienting people in the building. Then there's our actual interactions with people trying to find resources, programs, services, extended interactions that we have with our patrons. Historically, it's been a tally. We've simply said we did this, but we didn't know how long we spent, what the questions were about, what time of day the questions took place. This new software affords us the ability to elaborate a little bit more on that data, and therefore we can extrapolate more trending. So we can determine what are the busiest times at the library at each relative service desk. What types of questions are coming in?
Does a staff member have to run over to their computer and do it, or can they do it on an app? Or,
Right now, I mean, there's a variety of ways that it can be done. Right now, we're just doing it in a browser on
Okay.
the desktop.
Okay. And my second comment is I went to Finn's little program on the digitization services, which I thought was very good. So shout out to them. So.
Thank you. And we're looking to enhance our digitization services. We've gotten some additional feedback of some resources that folks would like to see as part of these programs. We've got a member who would like to digitize their Super 8 film, and we're looking into getting the proper projector to do that.
Finn did mention that they were looking for any community donations of older models of cameras or anything that people had sitting around that maybe they could use.
Maybe. We'll vet out those things. We want to make sure that we're providing quality equipment. So some of these things are hard. I mean, are they making VHS players anymore? Not so much. So, we are trying to find appropriate equipment. But yes, some of the more deprecated technology, we may need to rely on something
If somebody
older.
needs something, yeah.
I have spent many hours actually in the digitization with the little 8mm cassettes. Everybody has been extremely helpful in shepherding me through. And what I do is I call and see if anyone's using it, and if not, they can set up a reservation for me, so I can have it for a dedicated period of time. But it is, I was going to do this several years ago, and I was getting quotes of hundreds and hundreds of dollars, into the thousands, and I didn't even know it was on the tape. So it was a really nice resource to be able to come over and see what was on it and say, yes, I'd like to digitize that. No, I don't need to do that. So that's been really nice.
Great. Thank you.
I had a question about service to area book groups, and it mentions Kathleen Blair, who's with us this evening. Thank you, Kathleen. I'm in a couple book groups, and my question was, how are people aware of our services that you're providing, that you can offer, work, all kinds of things, assisting with selection and procurement of copies? Do you mind if I ask Kathleen?
I can certainly speak to that.
Oh, okay.
So
All
this
right.
is
Nice.
part
Thank
of
you,
our
Kathleen. Yeah.
interlibrary loan department. We service dozens of local book groups. It's primarily been cultivated through word of mouth, through, we have
Right.
quite a number of groups already that we're servicing in that method. Given the transition in staffing that we've had recently with the retirement of our longtime ILL coordinator, we're doing an internal study, and we're learning a little bit more about how we're providing these services and looking for ways that we can continue to enhance it. So we may be doing a bit more marketing, but we're definitely at capacity at the moment before we start putting the word out there that this is
Okay.
a service that we're providing and trying to promote it a little bit further. But it is true, we service dozens of local book groups who are not part of Wilmette Library sanctioned book groups.
Right, right.
And we help to provision all of those resources for those groups. So they may have 20-some copies of a title that we're provisioning through either the CCS consortium or from around the state.
Or it's a popular book and you can't get it. So,
And it gives us an opportunity as well to evaluate. As you know, we have a book club hub, and we can study the patterns and trends of the local usage in our community to determine, is this a topic that or a title that we should have in this collection that might have more broad usage locally in our community. So we're in the process of studying that, but it's an endeavor. There's a
Right,
lot that's involved
right.
in this process.
I appreciate that.
Yep.
Thank you. Hi, Kathleen. I didn't mean to put you weren't prepared for that, but that was a question, being in book groups as perhaps many of us are. So, thank you. We look forward to that and publicizing or marketing that. Wonderful. Thank you. Anything else? Good questions. Thank you. The board. Wonderful. All right. Moving on, we have our committee reports and ILA rails. We'll start with ILA. Trustee Nealon, anything at this moment
I do
at
not
this time?
have
Okay,
governmental information.
that's fine. And Director Austin?
Nothing
Rails?
from Rails.
Okay. And then Trustee Nealon, I know a meeting's coming up. If you
The
could
upcoming
speak to that.
meeting is Monday, March 4th, and I'm going to be attending. I hope Tracy can as well. That'd be great. And
Great.
we've gone about as far as we can with putting together our little database, which is a Google spreadsheet, and we're looking for some input on it. And we'd also like to see it as a living document. It's not the be-all and end-all. Love for people to, add people on the intergovernmental committee and anyone who becomes more deeply involved with that endeavor, let's say, like from any other government body who wants to jump in. And again, it's just a beginning.
A work in progress.
Yeah, it's a work in
Something
progress. It's a
to
work in
begin
progress.
with.
We've
Great.
got everything organized by, who it may serve, adults or children or elders, but that was, and it's a little bit it's searchable in terms of being just an Excel document right now. A database would do something much more fancy, but
Good. Starting place. Thank you for taking that on.
Trish did most of the work.
Well, representing the library. Thank you. Great. All right. Now, thank you. Our information items. We have our purple folder of our suggestion box, and we see that the Public Library Association Conference is April 3rd through 5th in Columbus, Ohio, and see Director Austin and any board members who are interested in that virtual conference. Is there any new business?
I have one thing.
Okay.
I would like to thank the Friends of the Library. I know I'm never here. They gave 7 bags of books to a Just Harvest. And my husband forgot to take them down. They're still in my garage. But their bookshelf was empty. It had one and so they pulled the books for me, bagged them for me, took them to my car. So I'm very
Excellent.
grateful to them.
Will you just give a quick shout out to what a Just Harvest is? And
Just
in case
Harvest
people are
is
not familiar.
It's a place that serves lunch and they serve lunch every day of the year, 365, no questions asked. You just show up from 12 to 2. And these days it primarily isn't homeless, it's low income. Right now they have a lot of migrants, more and more every week that we get. So it's families, kids, and so the Friends have done a phenomenal job in getting a really wide variety of books. They've had more kids, not all, many English speaking, but they've done picture books, chapter books. So we're very grateful.
That's great.
Yeah.
The Friends has done this on again, off again
Yeah.
in the last number of years, but I'm glad to see that you're replenishing and there's such a need. And anyone can come in, people come in, they are seated, they're served their meal, and then, but there's usually time before or after
Yep.
to pick a book. And I don't think there's any number of books that they can take or whatever, but we'll just keep
Filling them.
filling them, and it's great that the Friends supports that.
Yep.
Wonderful. Great. All right, thank you. Well, no new business. May I have a motion to adjourn then, please? It is 7:30.
I motion we adjourn this meeting at 7:30.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right.
7:30, motions, we have a motion, and we all approved it, and we are now adjourned. Thank you.